Last week, I published a 2-hour and 23-minute episode of this podcast. And it was a stream of consciousness kind of episode where I was just freely speaking everything as it was coming to my mind while out for a walk, which is a format that I typically reserve for my Train with Cliff audio journal podcast. In it, I spoke about what my first week of my experience of my personal creative working retreat had been like off the top of my head. Now, here's the situation. I already know at least one of my very close personal friends saw the timestamp and immediately deleted the archive and says, I'll listen to his next one. It's just the 2 hours and 23 minutes. He felt like it wouldn't fit into his day. Now, I want to say a special thank you to those of you who have already emailed me as a result of the call to action at the end of the episode. I said, hey, if you're still hearing my voice right here, 2 hours and some odd minutes into this thing, why not get credit for it? Email me. Tell me what you got out of those. Was there any value? Was there any insight? What are you going to take away from this? And thank you to those of you who have emailed me. By the way, I haven't responded to any of them yet, but I will be responding, so be on the lookout for that. In this episode, I am going to share many of the same things I shared in last week's episode. So for those of you who did not invest 2 hours and 23 minutes into listening to that episode, guess what? This much shorter, condensed, well thought out, and outlined episode will bring you up to date. No FOMO, no fear of missing out. You won't miss anything. For those of you who have already made that significant investment, should you listen to this episode? Yes. And here's why. Today is officially day 1 of week 3 of this personal creative retreat. And I am now fully in the midst of an ever-increasing momentum of flow state. Creative energy is flowing like never before. And I even have unique, different perceptions of my first week. And here's what I'm going to share in this episode. How is my retreat going? Will I do this again? What would I do differently if I do future retreats? And what has come out of this retreat already? Now, I have in front of me an incredible outline that was a part of what I call morning pages, and more on that in a little bit. But I'm going to share with you in this episode, I'm going to go through line by line what I wrote in my journal this morning and give you a little bit more of a deeper understanding of the value of this personal retreat. And just want to encourage you and inspire you and motivate you to get out of your normal daily rhythm and routine. Get out of the same place that you wake up and work every morning. Get out of the routine of driving to work the same way if you drive to work, or if you find some ways to break up the routine, to change the environment. And if you can do it for a couple of hours, if you can do it for a couple of days, and if you could do it for a couple of weeks, I hope this episode inspires you. That's what's going to be in this episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show.
Are you ready to take your message, your business, and your life to the next level?
Want to learn from someone with more than a decade of experience, training tens of thousands of people from all around the world?
Hi, Cliff. This is Pauline from Auckland, New Zealand.
John from Calgary, Alberta.
Amy Porterfield.
Michael Hyatt.
Dan here from Dunedin, New Zealand.
Ray Edwards. Mark Mason. Mike Stelzner.
Pat from Smart Passive Income.
It's Darren from Melbourne, Australia.
Now is the time to live the life of your dreams and do the work you feel most called to do in the world.
Welcome to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show.
Here's your host, Cliff Ravenscraft.
Welcome back, my friend. Oh my goodness, I am looking at my handwritten outline for this episode, and I I'm super excited to get this started. In fact, I'm starting the recording of this episode. It's just now 8:01 in the morning on Thursday, January 9th, 2025. And I could not wait. I have not yet brushed my teeth this morning. I haven't yet taken a shower. I've got some temporary clothes that I threw on just because I wanted to go out and capture some video of the sunrise over the Smoky Mountains. I'm like, I'm going to go record this episode. Then I will go take my shower and get ready for the day. That's how excited, that's how filled with enthusiasm I am just for this podcast episode. So thanks for tuning in. I hope that this raises your own level of enthusiasm and excitement for your day, your week, and your year ahead. Okay, so how is this retreat going? Well, first and foremost, right now I can tell you it is going amazing. It is beyond what I expected. And that is very important, beyond what I expected. And I'll get into why that's important. It will make sense in just a few moments. But one of the things that I will tell you is that I began to tap into this creative flow state on day 2 of week 2. So about, 6 days ago. Now that was Friday, January 3rd. Now I've been on this personal creative retreat, or at least the way that I've been tracking it in my mind, since the day after Christmas. And I will say that, let's see here. What is it I've written here? By the way, I'm going to try to follow this outline because I do want to stay on topic and on target with what I've already decided to share with you. I could meander on with all sorts of creative thought outside of it, but I do want to stay on track and on target. I want to share these specific details. So bear with me as I read my handwriting from my journal. It says here, which was Friday, January 3rd. I was able to easily tell you that. Oh, okay, that's why. So the reason why I'm able to easily tell you that the creative flow kicked in was because I have been avidly journaling my entire retreat experience each day. I have been keeping a log that starts off with day 1 of week 1, and then the date. And then I would actually write a log of each of the things that I've experienced. And I would be keeping that log throughout the day with bullet points and timestamps. And then there would be sections of the day where that wasn't practical. So I'd be experiencing a lot of things. And then several hours later, or maybe at the end of the day, I reflect back on what have I experienced since the last time I had logged a timestamp. And then I would try to go in and backfill what some of those experiences were. This is something that I do with journaling not all of the time, but very frequently, especially if I ever feel like my days just are flying by. Have you ever had experiences in your life where you are waking up in the morning and then it's time to go to bed and you feel like the day was 2 or 3 hours long and it feels like it wasn't as productive or efficient, or that you simply didn't get enough done or anything like that? Have you ever felt rushed through life? Well, one of the things that I do when that happens to me is I start to slow down and take note. What am I doing with my day? Can I become consciously aware of the decisions I'm making with each of the investments of each moment or hour of my day? What did I do today? And at the end of the day, if I go to bed after an exhausted day or a felt rushed day or anything like that, and I can't reflect back and say, what did I do today? Where did it all go? That tells me that I'm living in a hypnotic rhythm. That means that my subconscious mind is just on autopilot and I'm going through my day. And quite frankly, I'm just letting my habits and routines run me. Now, that's great when I am currently involved in some incredibly powerful habits and routines. Now, one of the things that I've recognized is there have been many times in my life where I do have some incredibly powerful and productive and meaningful personal self-care routines, such as waking up early in the morning, getting that workout in, meditation, journaling, reading, studying for growth, just absolute pondering. What do I want to create in life? Taking the time, several hours a day. That routine had been established. But then what I recognized, there are times when I don't necessarily have the same level of commitments to intentional habits and tracking of said habits on the professional side. I mean, I'm definitely going to look at my calendar and see what commitments I've made to meet with people throughout the day. However, I had noticed that those things don't just automatically show up all of the time. Sometimes it would be great if I could tap back into what I might have done in the past, such as creatively reaching out and engaging with people and connecting on a regular basis, being on the lookout for anybody that God might bring along my path who might reveal throughout conversation that they are struggling with something or they've got something that they could use some help with that might be a good fit for a product or service I have, and that there might be an opportunity to invite them. But if I am so heavily focused on only the 5 to 7 personal self-care, healthy living lifestyle, personal habits and tracking those routines, and then just showing up and living up and quite frankly, going above and beyond what would ever be expected from a paid client or a group of paid clients, that's without a shadow of a doubt. That's just a part of who I am. However, to go in and out of seasons where I am doing things with intention that I know lead to the potential of having more scheduled commitments on my calendar to be able to show up and be the fullness of who I am in the creative work that is meaningful and important and valuable in people's lives, and that brings that absolute fulfillment, knowing that I'm working inside of my zone of genius. I've recognized there have been times where that some of the things that's lacking is that I just am on autopilot doing this and that, getting distracted by every little whim or idea or interest, and wouldn't it be fun to go do that? All the while not realizing that I haven't planted any seeds lately. Now, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, I did an episode a couple episodes back, I think, about the seed planting strategy. So let me look and see if I can find that for you. Go back to December 20th of 2024, episode 752, Harvesting Growth, How a Seed Planting Strategy Drives Results. So it was a recognition of the fact that I had lost that loving feeling for the seed planting strategy side of my business and the activities that are involved in that. And it wasn't a conscious decision. It wasn't because I found it unfulfilling. Somewhere, some way, my focus, my attention got put somewhere else. And because I didn't have these as habits and routines, they were just scheduled commitments on my calendar for a season. And when those scheduled commitments to plant seeds each day was no longer there reminding me every day, and because they hadn't been a habit that I have internalized, they stopped when the reminders stopped. And that was not a conscious decision. It just happened. So anyway, yeah, when I get into those places, one of the things that I like to do is I like to create a journal, a version of my journaling that is a daily tracker. What did I do today? And keep that track. And I will do that sometimes for just a day, sometimes for 3 or 4 or 5 days. I've been known to do that upwards of 2 weeks. Now, obviously, I don't think it is the most valuable use of my time to consistently relentlessly, obsessively track every moment of every day. I don't necessarily do every moment of every day, although I have in the past before, obsessively for 2 weeks. And it was valuable one time for a season, and it gave me great insight about things that I might want to shift and change in my life. So maybe I am suggesting it might be valuable to do that for a season, but not every day. And I think it would, for me personally, it just wouldn't be a great use of my life to do that all the time. But it is one form of journaling that I have done in the past, and it is a form of journaling that I had decided to do during this retreat. So I have a bullet point list with timestamps of what I have done during this retreat, with a little bit of reflections here and there. I also, by the way, have other journal entries that are their own topics. Like, I'm just like, I just read this in a book, and this quote just blows my mind. So I'll take that quote and transcribe it into a separate journal entry with a new topic, time-stamped for the day and time in the same journal. I use Notion for my journaling. And then I'll write a journal post about that topic. And I might have actually done that for 35 minutes. And then what I do is I copy the link of that and I put that as a timestamp. 3:30 p.m. just did this journal entry. And then I hit paste a link to it, so it links to that in my actually daily tracker. It's a little crazy and obsessive, but it's just giving you a glimpse of how I'm tracking things and how I'm quite aware of how I can easily go back and say, when did I fall into alignment with the creative energy of all that is the flow of creativity? When did it lock in? When did it kick in? And I can tell you the day and the hour that it happened. And then I'm able to look back and say, wow, okay, what was going on the few days before that? What were the things that I was thinking and focused on? What was the evaluations and perceptions that I was tracking? And what shifted? And why did it shift? See? And here's what I can tell you as a result of journaling in these various different ways. Prior to this flow state kicking in, I had experienced a bit of resistance. That's the word that I would use to describe what was going on before it kicked in. It's kind of like my life is a pipe, all right? And maybe a water hose. Maybe I'll use this metaphor. My life is like a water hose. And the energy, the creative energy of life itself is like the water that's meant to come through the hose. All right? Now, every now and then, during certain seasons, I unscrew the hose from the faucet that's on the side of the house. All right? Now, I want you to imagine that the faucet on the side of the house is the connection to God, or at least my conscious connection to God, my awareness of my oneness with God that Jesus had prayed for. I pray that they would be one as you and I are one. And when I have my hose connected to that source, aware of it, consciously aware of it, then the water has the creative energy of all life is able to flow through. At least that's the design. By design, my life is meant to be a hose for the creative energy of life to flow through. Yet, there are times, whether it's conscious or unconscious, I get disconnected from that source. Now, it's not a real disconnection. It's a perceived disconnection. I don't necessarily believe that any of us could ever truly be cut off for that. And that's not the purpose of this podcast and focus of this podcast. So I'm not going to go there. But what I am going to say is that every now and then, metaphorically, if my hose is just laying on the ground haphazardly, and I didn't take time to care for the hose and put it in an environment like a place where there's no debris, and maybe roll it up real nicely and put it inside of a box, or just take real good care of it. But let's just say I just left it laying on the ground for whatever reason. And then all of a sudden, there are seasons where leaves have fallen on the ground, and then there's hard rains and dirt and dust, and maybe there's some dried out thing where it's more dirt. And anyway, all of a sudden, next thing I know, it's the next spring. Actually, let's just say it's the next the mix between spring is getting ready to turn into summer. And there's a need to hook the hose back into the source for a creative flow of that life-giving water to bring more green and freshness to the lawn, because it's starting to feel a little brown and worn out and overburdened by the heat of you see where this is going, right? I know you are picking up of what I'm laying down as it's flowing right here. So the thing is like, the lawn needs to be watered. So, okay, I've got the hose. That's my life. My hose is the life that's meant to bring water and refreshment and to not only myself, but my family, my friends, my community, the people around the world. I mean, it's just in various different ways. And I've got all of these tools. I've got the little hand sprinkler with the nozzle that has, I can turn it on a mist if I want to in some areas. I can turn it on to a heavy downpour in other areas. I can turn it into a nice, you get the idea. I can have the sprinkler where it's meant to cover a large area. Or I could just take all of those tools off and I could just focus and pinpoint on one little area of the yard or a plant, in a single plant that needs attention in the landscaping. It's just like I have all of these tools and I have this garden hose that is my life. And yet when I've been unconsciously just detached from my awareness of that source, that creative flow of energy for a period of time, there's a time where distractions and other thoughts and other ideas and other values start to get inside of the hose. That all of a sudden, I'm not aware of it, but I will. Have you ever had this? I've had this happen a couple times throughout my life where I see the hose is on the ground. Great. Let's go ahead and just plug that back into the faucet. Now let's go ahead and pull the hose out and stretch it out. Let's put it in the area and put the right tool on. For example, I know that the right tool is going to be podcast content creation. I know that the right tool for this is going to be writing a couple of emails. I know the right tool for this is going to be reaching out and connecting with people and saying, hey, what's going on in your world these days? How are things? You want to touch base? Whatever the tool may be. But in this case, let's just say it's the sprinkler that goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So that's the tool that I have. I'm like, I feel like I've got a good idea here. And I know that my life is meant to bring the source from it, the flow of energy, the creative enthusiasm, excitement, and meaning and purpose and energy and all that stuff from the source, the water spigot, the faucet. And then it's meant to flow through me unobstructed to whatever tool and implement so that the fullness of that energy reaches whatever it's meant to nourish. And what happens sometimes, I go and I turn it on and I'm expecting that flow of water to go 8, 10, 12 feet up into the air and just absolutely cover everything that I thought it would cover, only to see it rise up about 6 inches up into the air. Not 6 feet, not 12 feet, no, 6 inches, if that. It's like, what's going on here? There's no pressure. It's like the flow is just not there. Why is that? And so for me, one of the things that is just absolutely obvious when it comes to garden hoses is that there's something likely to be in the line. And here's how I can test that. I can unplug the hose from the faucet, and then I turn on the water faucet. The energy is flowing unimpeded, perfectly, exactly as it should. Okay? And then I'm like, okay, is it the tool? All right, so I unplug the other end of the hose from the tool, the sprinkler that goes left and right. And sometimes it could be the tool. Maybe I'm using the wrong tool. Maybe there's a problem with the tool. Maybe the tool needs to be evaluated. More times than not, it's not always the tool. Sometimes it is. But most times, there are some obstructions in the flow, resistance happening inside the hose, inside of me. And so what I'll do is now I've hooked the hose back up to the faucet. I've undone the sprinkler. Now I'm looking at the other end of the hose. I turn the water on, and the same level of like blasting out energy of water that was coming out of the faucet is now just a bit of a dribble. It's got energy coming out. There's something there. There's a spark of it. I mean, technically speaking, I could use it to probably drip some water on a couple of plants in the landscaping. There's a couple of things that are going to be able to be used. It's not all dried up. It's not that there's no flow, but is it at the level that it could be? No, it's very obvious. And so in the garden hose situation, I know immediately that there is something inside the hose. And so one of the things that I do is I'll go through, straighten the hose out. I'll go through and evaluate the hose until finally I find where the obstruction is, and then I do things to clean up the obstruction. And so, I mean, sometimes it may be, and I don't know that I've ever done this, but sometimes I just went and got a new hose. And I'm not saying I'm going to need to go get a new, well, okay, maybe metaphorically, maybe I need a new life, a new approach to life. And a new approach to life might actually be something that would be better. But anyway, there's sometimes it's like, hey, maybe there is a blob of something. Maybe a wasp has gotten in here, built a mud nest or something like that. Maybe there's something here, and it's so hardened. There's no just wringing this back and forth. I could literally, I could make a cut of the hose on one side, a cut on the hose on the other side, and then I could buy a little fitting and an adapter and some hose clamps, and by golly, hook it back up to the spigot, and boom, it is flowing again. And in fact, that is what I've experienced metaphorically on this personal creative working retreat. That is the example. And the evaluation of the hose and where are things kind of getting hung up? Where's the resistance to the flow? Because the natural state of my life is perfect flow with the rhythm of the creative force, the creative energy of my connection with God to be a source of nourishment in the world for myself, my family, and for others. Where's the resistance? Where's the resistance that's keeping me from showing up in my work the way I feel called to, the way in my relationship with my wife, the way I feel called to, the way I feel called, that's keeping me from showing up the way that I feel called to in my relationship with my kids, with my friends. It's like, wow, why is it that I am experiencing a dribble when I know that an unimpeded flow of that creative life force energy is possible? And sometimes, by the way, I may recognize in evaluating the hose, that there are holes. Maybe, just maybe, the hose was put away, and on its way dragging it in, it might have been caught up on something. It might have had something drop on it. But anyway, there could be little holes along the way. It could have just sprung a leak somewhere along the way. And those leaks are causing a leakage of the things downline or upline. And so these are the things that I find incredibly valuable. So one of the things that once I realized there was some resistance, and actually it was only when I actually tapped into the creative flow, here's what I came to understand. I came to this retreat with a level of expectation of what my time here might look like. For example, I envision myself waking up each morning, meditating, reading, studying, journaling until 7:30 in the morning. Matter of fact, very specifically, I saw myself getting my meditation, my reading and studying, and my journaling all done by 7:30. Now, there's a reason why I thought that, is because right now, my wife and I, prior to leaving for this retreat, we were going to the gym at 7:30 every morning together. Now, I felt I needed to find a way to get myself into a rhythm of making sure that I get that stuff done by 7:30. Now, quite frankly, going to the gym is a part of my early morning routine. However, there's a difference between Solitude, going to the gym and having it remain, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, technically speaking, I'm now engaging with the world, and I'm now out here doing the stuff. And so I'm recognizing some things that I was trying to take the old way of approaching my mornings and saying, how can I go here and find some way to force myself into a good rhythm of that routine? One of the things I can tell you is my morning routine has not ever stopped by 7:30. There has not yet been a single day since I've been down here where I was finished journaling, reading, studying, and meditating by 7:30. And ever since my parents and my son had left, because they came down for 4 days while they came down for the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday after Christmas. My son came down with my mom and dad, and it was a family kind of get together and gathering during that time. And they left Monday afternoon. So technically speaking, my retreat started the Tuesday after they left. And ever since then, I've woke up at 5 a.m. Now, I've had an early morning routine for quite some time, and I was getting up at 5:30 a.m. And so I even added an extra 30 minutes. I said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and push back to 5 a.m. And that will give me even more time for that time to be alone in the morning, to do my meditation, my reflection, my studying, reading for personal growth and journaling and all of that other stuff. And then certainly by 7:30, I will be finished. And the answer to that question is no. No, there's a lot to be experienced here in this morning routine, and so I came in with this expectation that I'd be done by 7:30. I would then go and get my workout in, much like I would do when I'm back at home, and that workout would be done, and I would be ready to start my workday, or at least have breakfast at 9 a.m. And quite frankly, most of my mornings have been until about 9 a.m. has been all that reflective time. It's like, oh, wow. And now I'm like, I'm behind schedule, and I should be starting this, and I should be starting that. And it's like, I'm on a retreat, for goodness sake. And so I came into this with expectations of what it would be like. Another thing that I thought I'd be doing is I thought I'd be up in the mountains. I am so incredibly blessed. My parents have this incredible lake house on Lake Douglas. It's like vacation heaven for people down here. And I have access to this anytime I want. I'm down here for 3 weeks. I'm looking out the window right now of the kitchen, and I see the sun reflecting off of Lake Douglas. I see English Mountain, which is one of the foothill mountains of the Great Smokies. I'm literally in the most stunning view of the mountains. Well, not the most stunning, but an incredibly stunning view of the mountains. I mean, there's other areas I could walk to that have, it's like, wow. But I have access to these incredible views of the mountains. But my idea, my expectation is that many of my days, I would actually take some of the things that I want to do and accomplish, and I would do them from pull-offs inside of the National Forest Park, the national park of the Great Smoky Mountains, that I would go up to Newfound Gap and just sit up there for hours and hours, not just early in the morning and see the sunrise from up there, but sometimes throughout the afternoon and I would go through hikes. I would be hiking through the Smoky Mountains in the wilderness. This would be incredible. It's like, this is what I envisioned. And well, as soon as my parents had left, the next day, or actually right before my parents came down, because I left and came down a day before them. But the very first day I got here, I drove up because it was Friday morning, the first full day I was here. My mom and dad and my son were going to be here Monday evening. That's when Friday evening, that's when they were going to arrive. So that Friday morning, that second day of my personal retreat, I drove up into the mountains, into the national forest. I arrived at Newfound Gap about 2 hours after I left the lake house. And as soon as I pulled in, there was a park ranger in his car with his blue lights on, driving incredibly slowly through the parking lot and speaking through the loudspeaker under his hood. I could hear some sort of announcement being made. And so I went and I said, "Hey, what's going on? I heard that you were making an announcement, but I didn't hear what it was as I was driving in." He goes, "Oh yeah, so we're getting ready to close the road here to Newfound Gap in 45 minutes. So in 45 minutes, you'll have to leave." And I said, "What's going on?" And he says, "Well, because of high winds, they're expecting wind gusts of up to and even beyond 100 miles per hour up here, and it would not be dangerous for people to be in the park." And so I said, "Okay." And I said, "But I'm good for 45 minutes." So I got 45 minutes in, and I got to do some amateur radio stuff, which is one of the fun little personal things I wanted to do. But I was thinking after that, I might throw my Starlink Mini up on top of the car and have my high-speed internet access. I might do a live stream. I might do this, but no, I've got 45 minutes, and then you gotta leave the park. And I'm like, okay, not a big deal. It's not what I had intended. I don't know that I would have made a 2-hour trip for 45 minutes, but hey, it is what it is. And so I come back all the way back to the lake house. Actually, I went into a different pull-off down in overlooking Gatlinburg. It wasn't the same experience. I did a little bit more, and then I came back. My parents were here. We had our weekend. Now, when my parents left, then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, now I can get back up into the Smokies. Well, if you have been following the weather around this time frame here in early January 2025, some very not so normal weather patterns have brought this winter vortex cold weather in, and it was already really unseasonably warm at the same time right before that. And so for 3 full days, high winds. Even here on the lake, the wind gusts were 35 and 40 miles per hour, and even much more higher than that. And so I kept looking at the national park website and for announcements of road closures, and there were road closures every single day. And then finally, just finally, there was a day where no high winds. It's like, yes. And then I looked at my calendar and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I have meetings today. All right, I have this meeting, I have that meeting, I have this meeting, I have that. You know, this is a personal, creative, but it's also a working retreat. And so I intended to do some work while I was here. But my thinking is I haven't yet tested whether or not I can actually do Zoom calls while I'm up in Newfound Gap. So the first day that it reopened up the roads, it just wasn't there. That possibility wasn't there for me. I wanted to stay here because I knew I could do the calls from here. But anyway, then I had calls the next day after that. And then after that, snow. Now, it wasn't snow here, but up in the mountains, there was snow, and they closed the roads. And since then, there have been ice and snowstorms and everything else, and the park has just been closed. There's no access for me to go to the park. And so today would probably be the first day that it's not closed right now. Maybe by the end of the day, if there were no more weather coming in, although it still is unseasonably cold, it's only 18 degrees here right now. It would normally be like 27 to 35 degrees here at this time of year, but it's 18. So maybe, just maybe, it still would be the roads would be closed today. But anyway, tomorrow there's another 2 to 5 inches of snow coming in. It's like, okay, now here's the situation though. I came in with expectations of what this would be like, and it wasn't sitting here in this lake house all day, every day. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with staying in this lake house all day, every day. It's incredible. However, when the expectation is that I'd spend so much time in nature, walking through the forest and working in the forest with forest views in a specific way, when that expectation had not been met, this seems somewhat less than that. So that's another thing that's like, oh, that's a resistance. I went into this with all sorts of expectations. So there, at one point, when I saw that all this weather was being predicted and I had some technology issues and stuff like that, all which are easily overcome, but I seriously considered going back home early. It's like this, I mean, I could just work from home and I wouldn't have all these things, and I'm not able to get up into the mountain. But I literally, that's how bad the resistance had been. So anyway, I am thrilled that I pushed through all of that. I am thrilled that I did not go home. I am thrilled that I'm like, listen, I happen to know for a fact I may not be able to have absolute perfect Zoom calls on Starlink Mini with no audio glitches or video freezes at all. I understand that that's not going to happen. It is definitely good enough, but not up to my standard. And if there's something better, I would want it. And so I found a way. It's like, I still down here at the lake house on my phone get 5G access through T-Mobile. It is a solid all-bar connection, and it's 600 megabits per second down, 80 megabits per second up. I can just do that. Well, I'm like, okay, that's great. And I did that until I hit my 5 gigabyte limit on the hotspot. And then it says, hey, we're going to slow your speeds down to 600 kilobytes. And then I'm like, well, okay, I've envisioned myself working on my MacBook Pro. I brought my super high definition webcam. I brought all this stuff. I envisioned I had expectations it would look like this when I do my work. Well, first I expected it would happen in the mountains, but then I'm like, okay, I adjusted my it'll happen here at the lake house, no big deal. But I expected it to happen in this way using these tools. And when the hotspot's no longer available to me, and while the Starlink Mini would work, but I'd drop a couple of syllables in people's sentences every few moments during a coaching call or a mastermind call, I'm like, I don't want that if I can avoid it. And I can, and I know I can. And finally, I figured out, you know what? I have the Zoom app on my phone, and I have unlimited data on my phone. Now, I will tell you, I still have T-Mobile, and they say, listen, you have unlimited data, but if you go over 50 gigabytes of data on your plan in a single month, we will then still give you unlimited data, but if you're in a congested area, we may reduce your speeds. And I've only went over 50 gigabytes a couple of different times in my experiences being a customer with them. And the only time I've ever noticed reduced speeds after my 50 gigs is at concerts and being in the middle of a big city with hundreds of thousands of people. So, quite frankly, in those areas, even when I haven't gone over my 50 gigabytes, I've noticed those slowed speeds. So I think it might have more to do with their ability. Now, here's what I will tell you. I have gone way over 50 gigabytes. I've already received the notification that says, hey, you're over it. You still get unlimited. But I'm probably, actually, let me look it up right now and tell you. I'm going to go to my settings. I'm going to go to cellular. And let's see here. Where's usage? So far, I'm at 85.5 gigabytes. So if I go to speed test right here, and I'm going to hit go. And even though I'm at 85 gigabytes, which is well over the 50 limit of before they start slowing down, I still only have 38 milliseconds of latency. I am getting right now 630, 50, 680, 700, 730, 706. It's still climbing, by the way. Okay, I went to 786 megabits per second. And right here where I'm at right now in the house, I'm getting 17, actually now 18, going for 20. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm getting 18 megabits per second up, even where I'm sitting right now, which would allow for flawless HD group calls on Zoom. So one of the things that I said is like, okay, I have to adjust my expectation, and I also need to appreciate the fact that there are backup solutions. There are possibilities that exist. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do my mastermind calls, my group coaching program calls, my one-on-one coaching calls. I will do all of those directly from the Zoom app on my phone, and I don't have to do anything else. And I tested it, and it worked, and I'm like, that's awesome. But I will tell you that there was a reasonable, I'm sorry, there was I'm trying to think of the word. There was an appreciable amount of time that I fretted over those technical things. That I invested time to ponder the issue, to discern what it is that I don't like, maybe spend a little bit too much time on what is not desired. Eventually, I went from problem-focused to solution-focused. And quite frankly, I probably overthought the solution way too much. And it took a little bit longer than I think was necessary for me to realize, why don't I just go and do all my stuff from the phone in the first place? I'm literally looking up other options. I'm thinking about going into town and getting the T-Mobile in-home hotspots, or the T-Mobile home Wi-Fi solution, calling AT&T and see if I can switch my phone over to them so I have 70 gigabytes on their unlimited plan instead of my 5 gigabytes of hotspot data. I'm literally thinking like hours and hours, and I'm like, why am I not enjoying this? Why is this retreat not living up to my? And that's the kind of resistance that I had been experiencing until day 2 of week 2 of this retreat. Now, again, they're technically speaking, those first, 5 days? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Yeah, those first 5 days. Those first 5 days, technically, I think should, in my mind, be relabeled to vacation with my mom and dad and my son. It's like vacation time, because in my mind, what I'm going to determine as a personal retreat is from the time I wake up until the time I go to bed. That is, I'm alone. I can wake up whenever I want. I can go to bed whenever I want. I can do whatever I want in any moment of the day, and nobody else is going to be in a proximity where there's any influence of what might be done about that day, how that day is being perceived, what the news of the day is, any conversation. I am in complete personal control over my attention, my focus, and I am consciously choosing to invest that time in whatever way I feel inspired in the moment to do it, all by myself. Now, did I have that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday? The answer is no. Am I suggesting that I'm unhappy with that? No, I knew that before I came down here. However, some of the resistance was that I was already tracking those days as parts of my personal retreat, and they weren't. And so that's another part of the reflection. It's like, what actually qualifies as personal retreat? These are the things that I'm learning. All right. So anyway, that is my answer to you as to if you were to ask me the question, how is my personal creative reflective retreat going? It's going great. It's going amazing. And since day 2 of week 2, I have been in a creative flow state. Now, will I do this again? The answer is absolutely yes. I actually feel that I have to do this again. In fact, I feel like I have to do this at least once a year. Now, will I have to do 3 weeks? No. In fact, if I really think about it, I still have one more full week. Today is day 1 of my 3rd week. And I don't drive back. It's currently Thursday, January 9th. I drive home next Thursday. So I have all day today and 6 more days of being down here by myself. And if I'm carrying the level at which I am plugged in and fully flowing with this creative connection, it's just amazing. And if I think that if I take what I've learned from this experience, then I might shift and change a few things that would make all future retreats even better. So, yeah, one of the things that I will say is I have had in my coaching that I do a handful of clients and also a handful of mentors who every year go away for a personal retreat for anywhere as little as a weekend, quite frankly, most for 1 or 2 weeks. And in some cases, I have mentors in my life that take an entire month or even upwards of 3 months off for personal retreats. So, and sometimes that's mixed with vacation, family, and it's more of what they call sabbaticals. But there's, for all of them that I'm mentioning, that I've observed, they all have a time of personal, alone, solitude, getting away. And I fully am in that crowd from this day forward. I am that person. I identify as a person who gets away on an annual personal retreat for solitude, likely for at least a week, more than likely 2 weeks, and it could be longer if the right opportunities present itself. So the third question, what might I do differently in future retreats? Well, first, I would definitely plan these with more advanced notice. The idea of this personal retreat, I left for this on the day after Christmas. The idea for this possibility of taking these 3 weeks and being here just occurred and came up a few weeks before Christmas, less than a month. And I had already committed to one-on-one coaching calls. I had already committed to, all of these different things on my calendar. And I'm like, and I was looking, it's like accounting with Stephanie and bookkeeping is on there. And I'm like, yeah. So I think that number one, I would want to prepare at least 1 month. Actually, you know what? I'm going to say this. I would preferably like to have at least 2 months before I leave for my personal retreat that I have decided the date, the destination, and the duration of that retreat. And then what I could do is I think that I would absolutely avoid scheduling any one-on-one clients during that time frame. So no one-on-one calls scheduled before I arrive at my destination. No committed scheduled calls with anyone during that time frame. Now, if I get there and I assess that all sorts of resources are available to me and I feel creative to reach out to some clients and schedule some calls, much like I have done while I've been here, I will do that. I can do that. However, if I take somebody, it's like, typically we meet on the first Tuesday of each month in our once a month calls. But if I see that I'm going to be gone for the first and the second, I would say, hey, next month I'm going to be on a personal retreat. Would you mind if we met on the third Tuesday? And if not, worst case scenario, I'm committed to meeting, upon our normal time. Please understand that I will be in the mountains. I'll take my Starlink Mini. I may have audio glitches. It would just mean that I might drop a few words here and there. Our video might freeze a couple times and stuff like that. Assuming that I have unobstructed view to the sky, I may find other solutions. But worst case, there could be a worst case scenario where what I plan to have available for us to connect won't be there. But all of that conversation could be had with a client before scheduling the call. I love that. And so that's one of the things that I do, because I typically am scheduling a call with the client 1 month later. And so if I'm only planning these out with 1 month in advance, 1 month would probably be just barely enough time. But sometimes I'm working with a client that we normally meet on the first week of each month, and I go to suggest the first week of the next month, and they say, hey, I'm on vacation. Can we do the third week? Because when I get back, I plan on a lot of catch up and blah, blah, blah. Can we do the third week? And that might push them back, let's just say 6 or 7 weeks into the future for our next session. And if I only have 1 month planning, I may end up being at my destination with that scheduled call. That's why I'm saying moving forward, I'd like to make sure that I have chosen my date, destination, and duration of my call 2 months in advance. Boom. That's number one. Number two, I would probably consider asking Stephanie, who co-facilitates my mastermind calls with me, and or some other individual in the group to co-facilitate those meetings for the mastermind while I'm gone. Now, if I get there and assess that the technology and tools that are available and I can show up, sure, I can show up and say, hey, if you want, I can take over, or you can continue to take over the meeting. I can be there, or whatever. But I would like to consider the idea that might be a possibility. And so I love the fact that I do the work that I do. I love facilitating my mastermind calls. I just want to make sure that I'm not in a place where I am cutting myself off from the opportunity to take my friend Dave up on his offer. He's got off-grid cabins that he's personally built with his wife in the dense forests of Alaska and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Completely 100% off-grid. There's no cell connection to be had anywhere. All right? Now, could I bring my Starlink Mini with me? Yes. However, that's not even a given probability, because I also require an unobstructed view of the sky. And so I won't know until I get there in this wilderness cabin 7 miles off of any big road where I actually had to take a snowmobile to get to it, and there's no electric and all this other stuff. Just think it's like, I want to make sure that is still an opportunity for me to choose, and that's when all of these things would come into play. So yeah, I would definitely do that. And then let's see here. I would go in to these retreats moving forward with really no idea as far as an expectation of what I plan for this retreat experience to be like. All right. So what I mean by that, will I have preferences? Will I imagine what's possible? Yes. Preferences, possibility, creatively visualizing, all of those are great. However, I recognized that I came here with some attachments to some of those expectations. And so one of the things that I will do is be a little bit more open to the flow of whatever is possible in the moment. And if my preferences aren't met, I will immediately just appreciate what is currently available to me. And I will ask myself, with what I currently have, what is possible? And I will get to that state much faster than I did on this retreat. I will anticipate the fact that I need to be so open to possibilities rather than attached to expectations. I definitely will not schedule bookkeeping / accounting during that. I will avoid that at every single cost. The very first day after my parents left and stuff like that, my first solo day here, I woke up that morning, had my early morning routine, had everything. It was all great. I had my breakfast, and then all of a sudden, it's whatever scheduled time. Stephanie and I were scheduled via Zoom to do bookkeeping and accounting, and it's like, that just immediately killed the flow. It's like, and then it took until late in the afternoon before I kind of bounced back into it. It's like, that needs to be scheduled. I either need to once I have my date, destination, and duration, I need to either move my accounting appointment with Stephanie for bookkeeping and accounting and all that other stuff around that, or I need, if that's non-negotiable for whatever reason, then I need to actually change the date, the date and duration of the thing to make sure that those two things don't align. I just know that that's something I would want. All right, and then that's pretty much the things that I would do differently. But I am definitely going to do more, and I'm going to go in them with what I've experienced here with, I think, a greater ease into the creative flow state of possibility. Now, what has come out of this experience already? Number one, the decision to move my early morning routine to waking at 5 a.m. instead of 5:30 a.m. Now, this wasn't because of some sort of scarcity of there's not enough time in the morning. It's just that I enjoy that time so much, and I would love to have an extra 30 minutes of it. That literally is the reasoning behind that. I used my last routine. So before coming on this retreat, I was already in a routine of waking up at 5:30 in the morning every Monday through Friday. And I think I've been doing that since April of this year, or of last year, 2024. And my early morning routine before that, which lasted probably several months, was waking up at 4 a.m. every Monday through Friday. And quite frankly, when I did that routine, I was experiencing some not desirable experiences with taking longer naps and stuff like that in the middle of the day. And it just, I knew that I didn't want to go back to 4 a.m. after the time change when we had our daylight savings in the fall. And so when I did get back into my early morning routine, I adopted 5:30 instead of 4 a.m. And ever since then, I've been feeling, I think 5 would be, that extra 30 minutes would be so nice. And so I implemented that while I was here. The other thing that I will say is that I made the decision to not only do it Monday through Friday, I've just gone ahead and made the decision to build my circadian rhythm around it. So I'm back to 7 days a week of getting up at 5 a.m. That came out of this retreat, and I've done early morning routine 7 days a week in the past, and it's always been a better experience. So that is something that came out of this. The second thing that has come out of this retreat so far is morning pages. I started reading the book, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I've heard about this book many times. I have many clients and friends who swear by the power of their morning pages. Every morning they get up and they write 3 full pages, handwritten stream of consciousness thought. Now, I have been an avid journaler for, I think, going on 15 years now, and maybe a little longer than that. I already journal pretty much on a daily basis, almost every single day, and certainly I can tell you for the last year and a half, every day. But anyway, I'm an avid journaler. I journal in many different ways, and I've often journaled in stream of conscious thought. It's where you literally you put your pen to the paper, or in my case right now, I'm currently using my Apple Pencil to my app, and I have I have 12.9-inch iPad Pro with the M2, I think, chip, and I have the equivalent of an 8.5 by 11-inch piece of paper with the equivalent of college narrow ruled paper. And so there have been many times where I will write stream of consciousness thought, where I literally write every word that's on my mind at the moment. And what I love about this kind of journaling is it is all about taking your mind and having it focus on your current thought and capturing it so that it's not this etherical thing that's just nebulously floating in some sort of non-physical existence. And boom, you're wrestling it down into a page where it can be viewed, evaluated, or whatever. Although Artist's Way book recommends that you're not reading these, at least not right away. But, I'm making my own approach to morning pages. I feel like I'm a little bit more advanced in the journaling and creative flow in life. The Artist's Way, the book, is all about helping people unblock their creativity. And it's kind of like the metaphor of the hose. It's just that I want you to imagine that I believe that the Artist's Way is a book that is written for somebody who has been given a hose to use on their property. They've been given their life. And unfortunately, somebody, while it was unplugged, some kids in the neighborhood decided it would be fun to take Quickcrete and mix it up in a thing and then pour it into the entire length of your hose so that there is absolutely not even a trickle of the creative force energy flowing through you. That's the kind of block, because it even talks about in the Artist's Way. It's talking about, you may find that your stream of conscious thoughts is a lot of whining and a lot of complaining and a lot of belly aching about certain things, and that's okay. Just write it down. You might not even have any thought, like you're like, I don't even know what to say. Well, write those words. I don't, DON', know what to say. Now that I've written that, I don't even know what this is really stupid. Blah. Why do I? And she even recommends this: just write and keep writing. Don't think a minute about punctuation. You don't have to worry about spelling anything correctly. You don't just keep writing and don't stop until you get to at least 3 pages. That is morning pages. And you could read more about it in the book, The Artist's Way. Do a YouTube video search on it. You'll find lots of people talking about it. Anyway, I've implemented morning pages as a daily practice. Now, am I doing it the exact way that it's recommended? No, I'm already creating a nuanced approach to it, but I am committed. Every day, I will, during my morning routine, do 3 pages minimum of morning pages. Now, my morning pages may not be whiny. They may have ideas that are things that I would like to implement throughout my day, maybe a topic for a thing. In fact, my morning pages today is what I'm looking at right now, which is an entire outline that just flowed immediately to me. So I'm actually using my morning pages, and I thought, I could, because I use an iPad, I can actually highlight, or I could change the color of my handwriting for certain things that I want to make sure that after I'm finished, hey, I could add that to my to-do list. Hey, I could put that on my list of topics for a future episode or live stream or something, or some other creative idea. If creative ideas come to me during morning pages, I don't want to take this suggestion that I should not read this for X number of weeks seriously, because I would like to be able to benefit from the creative thought that might come out of these morning pages. Anyway, I love morning pages. And since I've been talking about it, a lot of people and friends in my community have heard me doing live streams. I may have already mentioned this in the prior episode of this podcast. I think I did. And so, just friends of mine say, one of my friends who is incredibly successful, he is Chad Jeffers, plays guitar for Carrie Underwood. Is that right? Yeah, Carrie Underwood. Anyway, I just saw him. He was playing guitar on Times Square for New Year's Eve celebration. It's like, I love this. I've gone to the Carrie Underwood concert with Stephanie at the whatever that place is, the big resort. Is it One Resort? It's Resort One. Anyway, it's that big, huge resort that she had a residency in Las Vegas. We went and saw them there. Just all these different things. But anyway, It's so amazing to see the incredible life that Chad Jeffers has built for himself and what he's been able to create in this world. And he's like, Cliff, dude, been loving your retreat stuff. By the way, Artist Way, morning pages, love that you're talking about it. I was introduced to that in 1995, and I've been doing it every day since. And it's so incredible. And it's like, man, this is amazing. So yeah, I am a morning pages guy now. And not to the exclusion of my other types of journaling, by the way. Just saying. All right, another thing, I've been rereading The Prosperous Coach book by Steve Chandler and Rich Litvin. It's reminding me of some of the things that were originally inspired me the first few times I read this book, but it was been a couple of years since I've last read it. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, that connects. And then I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm implementing. So I love that. I've been reconnecting with so many incredibly valuable insights and principles from the Prosperous Coach book by Steve Chandler, Rich Litvin. I have improved my seed planting strategy and my commitments. I now have an incredible system for tracking and evaluating my seed planting commitments. It's not just the content that I'm creating. It's a more nuanced approach to all of those commitments, but also it brings in the relational connections on a daily basis aspect. I'm not going to go into the details of that. It's just that there's a system, and I basically did find an app that I am using, and it works perfectly. It is the Habit Tracker app. Let me go here real quick and do share app, copy, and let me go into paste and go. And then I will read to you which app I'm actually, it's called Habit Tracker, and the developer is Daveco. So it just switched the thing to Goal Tracker and Daily Planner. Will it actually go back to showing Daveco again? Actually, I can go down to the bottom where it says who the developer is, and I just want to make sure that I saw that. Yeah, it is Dave. See, that's why I did this. It's not Daveco. It is Dave Tech, all one word, DAVETECH Co. Oh, I guess Dave Tech Co. hyphen limited. All right, Dave Tech Co. hyphen limited. This is the app that I'm using, and I am keeping the habit tracking and routines of my commitments for my seed planting strategy. That is separate from the app that I use for my personal habits of meditation daily, reading, journaling, workouts, and eating my healthy eating style and all that other stuff, and waking early at 5 a.m. That is all tracked by the Habit Share app that I've been using for years, and that's over at habitshareapp.com. Anyway, so I have a strategy. It's implemented. I'm using it, and I can see how it's going to keep me focused without unconsciously losing sight. I'm going to put procedures in place for accountability with my wife and or other people in my life so that I make sure that these things are always being evaluated. All right? That is critical. And it is something that is, bits and pieces of this have been there over the years. It is now something I'm like, okay, I know this gets these results. This is predictable. I'm committed to this. And not just committed, but tracking, evaluating, and reflecting consistently with regular check-ins with specific people. This is amazing. There's a new addition to my seed planting strategy. It's called 30-minute connect calls. Previously, my connections with people were exchanges via email, direct message, comments back and forth, and quick little audio notes here and there, a lot of asynchronous communication. But if I was going to actually connect with somebody one-on-one, the next level for me most of the time was a complimentary 90-minute one-on-one coaching experience. And of course, by invitation only. But the thing is, though, what about if somebody's not yet at a level where that I perceive that that's a good fit for them, But wow, what if I just took this interaction via this text message exchange or email exchange or direct message exchange? What if we just jump on a call for 30 minutes? No expectation, no real desire to like turn this into anything, but just to connect with this human in real time for 30 minutes. And making a commitment to doing a minimum of 4 of those per week, every week, and tracking that, yeah, that's come out of this. And I've already done 3 of them yesterday. I have 2 or 3 scheduled today. I have 1 scheduled tomorrow, and I've got 9 more invites out. But these calls are still only invitation only. And it's like, these are, yeah, it's awesome. All right, so the next thing that has come out of this retreat, a commitment and return of the ketogenic lifestyle at the next level beyond what I was doing in my previous version of the ketogenic lifestyle, which was still incredibly powerful. But before, I had limited my carbs to 30 net carbs per day. This time, I have decided no more than 20 net carbs per day. And I can tell you right now, I'm in ketosis. I can tell it, the brain fog of, that comes with having the carbs, the mental clarity is there. I know a lot of this, some of my feeling of day 2, week 2 might also be the effects of actually easing my way into a ketogenic state. So yeah, by the way, this is not my recommendation for you to go research and implement keto in your lifestyle. Seek professional advice, do your research, make your own decision. I'm only explaining that I've done life incredibly well in meeting certain goals without keto before. I've done it with keto. I definitely much prefer how I feel and experience life on keto for me personally, and that's why I'm back on it. And I'm committed to it. So, and I'm going to track that. Of course, that's already been something that I've tracked, but it's not been something I've been as committed to lately. It's kind of like, oh, you know what? Once a month, if I go out and do this or that, and that turned into like on the weekends, and that turned into, well, I'm off keto, and yeah, parents are bringing pizza. Let me go ahead and do that, and then it just went on and on. No, I'm now back in a ketogenic state. By the time I'm getting back home, I will almost be fully fat adapted again, which is a thing. And by then, I might even be ready to get back into like some OMAD, 1 meal a day stuff. But anyway, that's all come out of this. A different approach and a different time for my daily physical activity. So I don't have access to my home gym here. I've not been leaving at 7:30 in the morning to go to the gym. I have not even been leaving at 7:30 or stopping at 7:30 to go work out downstairs and or wherever I'm going to get my physical activity. And well, one of the things that I've been doing is not only have I been doing this at a different time, but I've also been doing a different workout. Now, there's a elliptical here. There's a treadmill here. It's downstairs in a room with no windows. At least I don't think there's a window in there. I'm pretty sure there's not. Anyway, or maybe there is, but it's under the porch. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The first few days I was here, I was doing my workouts on the treadmill down there and streaming Netflix from the Starlink Mini, which works great for that, by the way. But anyway, I'm like, I have the ability to go outside and walk and see the view of these mountains. Sure, it's 18 degrees, but come on. And then I had the idea, I could even make this more personal. I could reach out to some of my friends and colleagues and clients and peers and say, hey, do you want to jump on a 30-minute FaceTime call while I'm out for a walk around the lake house down here on my personal retreat? Would you mind talking to me while I'm on a walk? It helped me take my mind off the fact that it's so freezing cold. And they're like, yeah. And so I've had so many it's just been amazing. So now, will I continue to go to the gym when I get back home? Yes. Will I likely fall back into the 7:30 in the morning routine so that Stephanie and I can consistently go to the gym together? As long as she's up for it and committed to it, the answer is yes, I will definitely do that. I'm open to shifts and change if that's not something that works great for Stephanie. So I'm much more open to creatively thinking about different ways of approaching my physical activity. Still committed to it 7 days a week, every week. I love going to the gym, but what I'm saying is I'm going back with a much more open mind about what that might look like, and in whether or not it happens, that we leave the house to go to the gym at 7:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday. That is going to be completely up to Stephanie, and I have the ability to influence that conversation, and we could choose other things. And so I'm just saying there's a lot that's up in the air as far as what that routine looks like and where the workouts are, what time frame they fit in. But I'm loving what I'm experiencing while I'm down here. That's for sure. And it's happening sometimes around 10 in the morning, sometimes it's at 1 in the afternoon, sometimes it's 3 in the afternoon. But I just go out for a walk and I'm doing a FaceTime and or a Zoom call with people right from my phone while I'm walking, freezing my butt off. But it's not really hitting me because I'm so engaged in conversation, and it's amazing combining my workouts with Connect calls, and it's so personal. I love it. And yeah, I love it. All right. Another thing that has changed, a greater sense of flow, and everything that I'm doing right now just feels like effortless action. There's a lot of things that I'm doing, but it feels effortless. Whereas there was a lot of things I was doing the first week, but it felt like so much effort. So there's less resistance. It's just more going with the flow, and it's great inspired flow. And more than anything, what am I getting out of this? A renewed focus on the work that I do, the importance of the work that I do. And in these conversations I'm having with people, the value of the work that I do, a reconnection to the work that I do in a way that was still there through this garden hose of my life before this retreat. But I feel like I've cleaned out, and there's an unrestricted flow once again of the work that I do. And I'm excited about what that means. So I have a question for you. 2 questions. It depends on who you are. First and foremost, do you do personal creative retreats? If so, I want to hear from you. I want you to email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com, and tell me how often do you do your retreats? What are some of your favorite experiences? Just as short or as long as you want that email to be. I would love to be inspired. If you have one photo that you'd like to attach that just is a special memory, feel free to attach a photo. You don't have to. But I'd love to hear and be inspired about some of the creative retreats you have been on to inspire me to think outside of the box about some of the retreats that I'll go on in the future. All right, second question. If you are not already in the habit of doing personal creative retreats, has my content recently and this episode inspired you to do so? And if so, when, where, and what length will your personal retreat be? Email me and let me know, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. Let me tell you why emailing me and telling me this would be so beneficial. The first person I talk to, it's because I want to be inspired by their ideas of places and ways and things that they've done during their retreats. That's obvious. But you might think, how could you emailing me about what you plan to do be valuable to me? It's valuable to me to know that I've inspired you. The more people that I inspire, the more it motivates me to say, okay, I need to create more content that is actually calling people to really think about their conscious attention to what they're doing in their life. I want to hear if this has inspired you to create a personal creative retreat. But I don't want you to just email me and say, yes, you've inspired me, I'm going to do this. No, I want to hear when, where, and how long. Email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. Hey, and if you're interested in doing life with me as an entrepreneur, I want you to know that I have a mastermind group called the Next Level Mastermind. It is full-time self-employed people who are on this entrepreneurial journey of creating the life that takes their gifts, talents, and abilities, and we are serving others at the highest level through our paid products and services. We're committed to excellence. We're committed to growth. We are committed to a positive outlook on life. We all experience ebbs and flows. We all experience obstacles, but we all have an incredible amount of education, skills, talents, abilities. We all have so many various different experiences of things that we've done and tried and learned from. We all have such an incredibly powerful way of showing up and being in the world, and we bring all of that in service to each other. Just imagine every few weeks, you get 70 minutes in our weekly mastermind call where you could say, hey guys, this is what I've got currently going on. I've been listening to this podcast, or I read this book, or I'm taking this course, and here's something that I'm committed to creating in my business. And here are 3 questions I have. Number 1, has any of you ever done this, or do you know anybody that has? Number 2, do you know what tool or what recommendation you have for fill in the blank? And does anybody else have you ever struggled with a fear about this? Because here are some of the limiting thoughts that I have. And then just imagine setting all that up, and then the other people in this group asking you clarifying questions, providing feedback, advice, sharing stories from their experience, wisdom, all of this attention on you every few weeks when you're in the hot seat. And then imagine you're not in the hot seat, but somebody else in the group is. And they've read a book you haven't read, taken a course you haven't taken, talked to a coach you haven't worked with, and they are now inspired to do something you've never heard of before. And you still, when you hear about it and they ask their questions, share their obstacles, share their request for insight and valuable feedback, you are still able to pull from your education, your experience, your areas of expertise. And while you're giving them valuable feedback, along with everyone else that just blows that person's mind, you yourself are getting as much and sometimes even more value from other people's hot seats than you are your own. If you would like to pursue this, by the way, I now have 2 mastermind groups. One is for those who are already on this full-time self-employed lifestyle entrepreneurial journey. And then I now also have a second group for those who are aspiring or early stage entrepreneurs. So there's 2 different levels in 2 different groups that I have. And if you are on the entrepreneurial path, full-time self-employed desired lifestyle, or you're in the early stages, or you're advanced in it, I have one of 2 groups for you. Email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com, and tell me that you're interested in learning more. Maybe we'll jump on a 30-minute connect call. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level. And by the way, the email address, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com.
Mindset Answer Man.